All right. Looks like we've got a ton of info here about this Alpha Griller's instant read meat thermometer. Reviews, comparisons, even a deep dive into its water resistance.
Someone's serious about their grilling.
Definitely. And the thing is, it's not even just for meat. It's for liquids, deep frying, candy making, basically anything where you need a quick temp check.
Right, so it's kind of like a multitasker in the kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
which is great, especially if you don't have a ton of space. But how do we know it's accurate?
Well, one reviewer actually tested it against, get this, a professional-grade fluke thermometer.
Wow, that's serious equipment. So how did it stack up?
He said it was within a fraction of a degree of the fluke. For a budget-friendly option, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no kidding.
Mm.
Accuracy is so important, especially with food safety. Nobody wants to be playing guessing games with undercooked chicken, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of taking the guesswork out of things, this Alpha Griller's thermometer has a hold function.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, so you can take it out of the oven or off the grill and still see the reading. No more squinting over a hot grill trying to read those tiny numbers.
I've definitely been there. But have you seen anything about how responsive it is? Like how quickly does it give a reading?
Super fast. It claims a 2 to 3 second response time. There are tons of reviews praising how quickly it works, especially for things like checking the temp of oil for deep frying.
Yeah, that makes sense. You need a fast reading when you're working with hot oil. A few degrees can make all the difference.
Oh, and get this. It has a max-min memory.
Really?
It's cool.
Yeah.
So if you're smoking a brisket overnight, for instance, you can check what the highest and lowest temps were while you were sleeping.
Wow, so it's like having a built-in temperature log. That's super helpful for those longer cooking projects.
And on top of all that, it comes with all sorts of mounting options. There's a built-in magnet, a hole for hanging, and even Velcro strips. They've really thought of everything.
It sounds like they're going for ultimate user-friendliness. But what about durability? How does it hold up over time?
It boasts an IP66 rating, so it can handle splashes of water. One reviewer even said it survived a quick dunk in the sink.
Wait, IP rating? What does that even mean for someone who's not, an engineer?
Oh, right, good point. It basically tells you how well a device is protected from things like dust and water. So IP66 means it's totally dustproof and can handle strong jets of water.
Okay, so no worries about rinsing it off or accidentally dropping it in the sink. That's good to know. But accidents happen, so what about a warranty?
They offer a lifetime warranty.
Seriously, a lifetime warranty on a thermometer.
One reviewer actually said they got a free replacement after 3 years of use.
Wow, that's impressive. Most companies wouldn't even think of offering that kind of guarantee. They must be pretty confident in their product.
It definitely seems that way. All right, so we've talked about all these great features, but what about real-world experiences? What are people actually saying about this thermometer?
Right, that's the key. Marketing can only tell you so much. Let's hear what actual users have to say. What kind of feedback are you seeing?
Well, it has over 70,000 reviews on Amazon, and most of them are super positive. People love its accuracy, how fast it is, and how easy it is to use. But of course, there are a few critical voices in there too.
That's to be expected. No product is perfect. It's good to get a balanced view, though. What kind of drawbacks have people mentioned?
Some people mention that the print on the thermometer is a bit small, which could be tough for people who need reading glasses.
Ah, that's a good point. Makes sense.
And another reviewer pointed out that the printed temperature guide on the side is kind of confusing. The temperatures are out of order.
Huh, that's weird. Seems like a pretty basic thing to mess up.
Yeah, it is a little strange. And then a few people complained about the battery life. They said the CR2032 coin cell drains pretty quickly, especially if they use the backlight a lot.
Right, backlights can be a real drain on batteries. At least they include a spare battery, though.
True. Okay, so we've covered the good and the not so good. What stands out to you from all of this?
Honestly, I'm pretty impressed with the value proposition. It seems like you get a ton of features for the price, plus that lifetime warranty is amazing. It seems like they're trying to cater to home cooks who want a really reliable and versatile tool without breaking the bank.
Yeah, I agree. But before we get ahead of ourselves, maybe we should dig a little deeper into some of those less than glowing reviews.
Yeah, you're right. It's all about getting the full picture. What else have you got?
Well, there were a few comments about the placement of the hold button. Apparently, it's really close to the backlight button, so people accidentally hit it sometimes.
I hate when that happens.
Mhm.
It can be so frustrating, especially if you're in the middle of cooking and just want a quick temp check.
Exactly. And then there were some concerns about the water resistance. It's rated IP66, but a handful of people said water got into the battery compartment.
That's a bit worrying. You'd think with that rating it would be totally waterproof.
Right. It makes you wonder if maybe there's some inconsistency in the manufacturing or if those reviewers just got unlucky.
Either way, water damage can be a real deal breaker for an electronic device.
Definitely. So while the Alpha Griller's thermometer seems like a solid option overall, it's important to be aware of these potential issues.
Agreed. It's a good reminder that even with thousands of positive reviews, it's always worth looking at those dissenting voices too.
Absolutely. You can never be too careful, especially when it comes to something as important as food safety. But even beyond safety, using a good thermometer can really elevate your cooking.
You're so right. Think about it. Wouldn't it be amazing to cook a perfect medium rare steak every single time?
Every single time, no more guessing, no more cutting into it to check, just perfect results.
Exactly. And it's not just about meat either. Think about baking bread. The temperature of your oven has such a huge impact on the final product.
Oh, absolutely. Too low, and you end up with a dense, doughy loaf. Too high, and it burns before it cooks through.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, that perfect temperature where the magic happens. And a thermometer can help you do just that. It's not just about safety. It's about understanding what's happening inside your food so you can create amazing results.
It's like having a secret window into the science of cooking.
Exactly. So we established that a meat thermometer is a must-have for any serious cook. But how does this particular thermometer, the Alpha Grillers, measure up in different cooking situations? Let's say you're grilling a thick steak. How would you use it to achieve that perfect medium rare?
Okay, so for a thick steak, you'd want to insert the probe into the thickest part, avoiding any bones, of course. And with its quick response time, you'd get a reading almost instantly. For medium rare, you're aiming for an internal temperature of around 130 to 135 degrees Fahrenheit.
And remember that hold function. You can take it off the grill and check the temperature without losing precious heat. No more hovering over the flames.
Exactly. It's all about seamless cooking. Okay, now what about baking bread? How would the Alpha Grillers help there?
Baking bread is all about precision, especially when it comes to internal temperature. You want to make sure it's cooked through, but not dried out. With the Alpha Grillers, you can just insert the probe right into the center of the loaf.
And for most breads, you're looking for an internal temperature of about 190 to 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. It takes all the guesswork out and helps you get consistently delicious bread every time.
What about deep frying? How does a thermometer come in handy there?
Maintaining the right oil temperature is key for deep frying. Too low, and your food will be greasy. Too high, and it'll burn on the outside before it's cooked through. So the Alpha Grillers can help you keep tabs on that oil temperature, making sure it stays within the sweet spot for whatever you're frying.
It's about precision and control, which ultimately leads to better tasting food.
Absolutely. So from perfectly cooked steaks to crispy fried chicken, this thermometer seems to have you covered. But let's not forget about those sweet treats. How about candy making? That's another area where temperature is crucial. Oh, absolutely. The temperature of your sugar syrup determines the final texture of your candy. So with the Alpha Grillers, you can monitor that temperature as it heats up, making sure you hit those critical points for different types of candy. No more worrying about ending up with a sticky mess or rock-hard toffee.
So it sounds like the Alpha Griller's instant read meat thermometer really lives up to its multitasker reputation. But before we wrap up part one, there's something else that really struck me while reading through all these reviews.
Oh, I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's the power of user reviews. People go into such detail about their experiences. It's like having a direct line to thousands of people who have actually used the product.
It's like a giant focus group. It's so valuable for potential buyers because it gives them real-world insights that go beyond the marketing hype.
Exactly. And in the case of the Alpha Grillers, those reviews have played a huge role in its popularity.
It's a reminder that in today's world, word of mouth can really make or break a product.
For sure. So we've covered a lot of ground here in part one, from the features and pros and cons to the importance of food safety and what actual users are saying about this thermometer.
And we've only scratched the surface. There's a whole world of culinary possibilities to explore when you understand the role of temperature in cooking. But before we move on, let's leave you with this thought. Have you ever considered the deeper connection between temperature and flavor? How does knowing the exact temperature transform the way our food tastes? Welcome back. So last time we were just about to dig into this fascinating link between temperature and flavor.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much heat can actually change the taste and texture of our food.
Right. We often think of cooking as just following a recipe.
Hmm.
But there's a whole lot of science going on behind the scenes.
Totally. And understanding how temperature affects those reactions can seriously up your cooking game. But before we dive into all that, I wanted to circle back to something from part one. That reviewer who compared the Alpha Grillers to a professional-grade fluke.
Oh yeah, that was pretty wild. It's not often you find that kind of accuracy in a budget-friendly option.
And he even said he'd buy another one even if they didn't honor the warranty.
Wow, that's a serious vote of confidence.
Well,
Sounds like Alpha Grillers is really focused on quality. But even with all the great features and glowing reviews, it's always good to look at the user experience. Have you seen any comments about how comfortable the thermometer is to hold? Or how easy the display is to read?
yeah, actually, a bunch of people mentioned the design. They said it fits comfortably in their hand. And that bright blue backlight we talked about, people love it.
Makes sense, especially if you're drilling outside at night,
Yeah.
or even just in a dimly lit kitchen.
Right. Nobody wants to be squinting at tiny numbers when they're trying to cook. And speaking of practicality, what about cleaning?
Ugh, yeah. Nobody wants to spend hours scrubbing off stuck-on food, especially after handling raw meat.
Well, good news. The Alpha Grillers seems to be pretty easy to clean. It's IP66 rated, remember? So you can just rinse it under the faucet. A few reviewers even said they toss it in the dishwasher.
Nice. That's definitely a bonus. It makes the whole cooking experience so much more enjoyable when cleanup is a breeze. So it sounds like the Alpha Grillers is hitting all the marks: accuracy, ease of use, durability, and even dishwasher safe. Is there anything else we should think about before we give our final verdict?
We did touch on those few minor drawbacks. Like a couple of people said the printed text on the thermometer is pretty small. Could be a problem for people who have trouble seeing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Accessibility is super important.
And then there was the battery life issue. Some reviewers thought the battery drained a little too quickly, especially if they use the backlight often.
Makes sense. Backlights can be a real energy hog. But hey, at least they include an extra battery.
True. Okay, so all things considered, how do you think the Alpha Grillers stacks up against other thermometers in its price range? Is it really worth the money?
From everything we've seen so far, I'd say it's definitely punching above its weight class. You get the accuracy, the features, that crazy lifetime warranty. It's hard to beat at this price point.
Yeah, it seems like they found that sweet spot between affordability and quality. But of course, the best thermometer for you depends on what you need and what's important to you.
Right. Are you all about precision? Is convenience your top priority? Or maybe you're on a tight budget.
Whatever it is, it's good to think about those things before you buy. But based on what we've seen, the Alpha Griller seems like a pretty solid contender.
Definitely. But before we move on to our final verdict, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. It really impressed me about Alpha Grillers as a company.
Oh, what's that?
Their customer service.
Uh-huh.
We already talked about the warranty, but it goes beyond that. A lot of the reviewers were raving about how helpful and responsive their customer support team was.
It's like having a safety net, knowing that if something goes wrong, you can count on them to help you out.
Exactly. It shows they actually care about their customers, which is a nice change of pace these days.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think it's time for our final verdict. Ready to weigh in.
You bet. Based on everything we've looked at, the features, the performance, how easy it is to use, even their customer service tones, I'd say the Alpha Griller's instant read meat thermometer is a pretty awesome product.
Would you recommend it?
Absolutely. It's versatile, it's accurate, it's affordable, and it's backed by a company that actually seems to care. It's a great tool for any kitchen, no matter what your skill level is.
So there you have it, folks. If you're in the market for a good meat thermometer, the Alpha Griller's Instant Read Meat Thermometer is definitely one to check out.
It can really change your cooking game. And with that lifetime warranty, you know you're making a smart investment. But before we move on to that temperature and flavor connection, remember those couple of negative reviews? The ones about the button placement and the water resistance?
Oh yeah, those were a little concerning.
Yeah, it's good to keep those in mind, even if they seem like isolated incidents.
Exactly. It's always a good idea to do your research and weigh the pros and cons before you make a decision.
Couldn't agree more. All right, so are you ready to finally dig into this whole temperature and flavor thing?
Oh yeah. We've been teasing it long enough.
So we talked about how a thermometer can help you cook safely and get consistent results. But how does understanding temperature actually change the way our food tastes?
Yeah, it's more than just knowing when your chicken is cooked through.
It's about understanding how heat reacts with the different molecules in food, changing their structure, and creating all those amazing flavors and aromas.
Like, think about a perfectly cooked steak. The crispy, seared crust, the juicy pink center. It's all thanks to temperature control.
You got it. Different proteins in meat change at specific temperatures. So by understanding those temperatures, we can control how those proteins transform. And that's how we get the texture and taste we want.
It's like cracking the code to culinary perfection.
Exactly. And it's not just about meat. Take baking bread, for example. The temperature of your oven affects how the yeast works, how the gluten develops, and that all impacts the rise and texture of your bread.
Right, if it's too low, you get a dense, sad loaf. Too high, and it's burnt on the outside before it's cooked in the middle.
Exactly. It's all about finding that Goldilocks temperature, that sweet spot where everything comes together perfectly. And a thermometer can be your guide. It's about understanding the why behind the how, so you can make the most delicious food every time.
It's like peeking behind the curtain of cooking. So before we wrap up this part, I want you to think about temperature not just as a number, but as a key ingredient in your cooking.
Experiment. Play around. See how different temperatures can completely transform your favorite ingredients.
All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So we've spent the last two parts really getting to know this Alpha Griller's thermometer.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm pretty impressed,
Mhm.
especially for the price.
Me too. But now it's time to talk about why we're so excited about thermometers in the first place. It's all about the fascinating connection between temperature and flavor.
Right. It's like having this secret weapon in the kitchen.
Mhm.
Instead of just guessing, you can use precise temperatures to control how your food cooks.
Totally. It takes the guesswork out and helps you create those amazing dishes every single time. So can you give us an example of how temperature affects flavor, like in a specific dish?
Sure. Let's talk about caramelized onions.
Oh man, caramelized onions, they make everything better. Burgers, pizza, sandwiches.
Right, and it's all thanks to temperature. When you cook onions slowly over low heat, the sugars inside start to break down, and that's what creates those rich, sweet, savory flavors.
So what's actually happening there, like at a molecular level?
It's called the Maillard reaction. Basically, it's a chemical reaction between amino acids and sugars that happens at temperatures above 285 degrees Fahrenheit. That's what causes food to brown and develop those complex flavors.
Ah, so that's the key. So if we don't reach that temperature, the onions won't caramelize properly.
Exactly. And that's why using a thermometer, even for something as simple as caramelized onions, can make a huge difference. It helps you hit that sweet spot where the magic happens.
Okay, that makes total sense. And now I'm thinking about baking bread. We talked about how oven temperature affects the final product, but how does that relate to flavor?
Well, think about the crust of a loaf of bread. That crispy golden brown crust. That's also the Maillard reaction in action.
Oh, wow. So if the oven isn't hot enough, the crust won't develop properly.
Right, and the bread might end up tasting bland or doughy.
Makes sense.
Okay.
So temperature isn't just about getting the bread cooked. It's about creating that delicious crust and the perfect texture.
Exactly. And it's not just bread and onions. Think about candy making. Temperature is absolutely crucial there.
Oh, yeah. I've had my fair share of candy making disasters. I'm guessing that's because I wasn't paying attention to the temperature.
It's very likely. Different types of candy need to reach specific temperatures to get the right texture. Like if you want chewy caramels, you need to cook the sugar syrup to a different temperature than if you're making hard candies.
So a thermometer is basically essential for candy making if you want to get it right.
Pretty much. It takes away the guesswork and helps you create those perfect melt-in-your-mouth treats.
Wow. Okay, so from savory dishes to sweet treats, temperature really is the key to unlocking those amazing flavors.
It's about so much more than just safety. It's about understanding how heat transforms ingredients and using that knowledge to create truly delicious food.
It's like becoming a flavor magician. And a good thermometer is your magic wand.
I love that analogy. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of meat thermometers, I want to encourage everyone listening to embrace the power of temperature. Experiment, explore, and discover how even small changes in heat can create incredible results in your kitchen.
Yeah, and remember, it's not just about following a recipe. It's about understanding the science behind those delicious flavors and using a thermometer to help you create your own culinary masterpieces. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.